As I said before, if we haven't met, my name's Josh. I'm one of the pastors here. And it's so great to be with you this morning. We are finishing off our series, A Better Question, where we have been spending the last 2 weeks looking at the fact that questions are everywhere. They shape our lives. They give us ways to assess where we are. And questions have the power to take us from where we are into something of where we could be and the direction of our lives. If you've been with us on the journey, you would have tracked with this so far, but in case you've missed a couple of things, the fact that there is a great question that we can ask. It's this whole question of what should I do about me? It's a good question. It's a question that helps us get in shape, get at it, get on with our lives. But the thing we looked at was, is it really the best question? It's a good question to help us self-improve, but is it a question that helps us make the most of this life that we have been given? So that was week one. The fact that when we make our lives all about us, when we assume that everything that we get is for us to consume, our time, our energy, our finances, when we think life is about me, all we have to show at the end of our life, all we have to show at the end of our lives is a fitter, healthier, wealthier corpse with a cool property portfolio. Remember I said that? And yes, some of you were laughing nervously. No, I'm joking. It's great if you've got a property portfolio. Enjoy it. All right. And we learned this fact. In Jesus' economy, in week 2, we looked at the fact that people who try to hold on to their lives, people who try to make their lives all about themselves and truly lose their life. And Jesus gave us this paradox of saying, lose their life. And Jesus gave us this paradox of saying, those who want to save themselves actually have to try to hold on to their own lives. And as we finish our series, we're going to be looking at the fact that when we give our lives to something bigger, it's life in its fullest. And the better question that we have is, what breaks my heart? That's the better question. When you ask that question, when you answer that question, and when you act on, when you ask that question, when you answer that question, and when you act on that question, you will find that life opens itself up because Jesus made life about other people. So I wanted to start off this morning by just letting you know what breaks my heart. I've been asking you for the last 2 weeks to consider what is the one thing that if you could change in an instant, the one thing that if you had a button, you would push that button no matter what, because you recognize there's brokenness in our world and we all want to be part of fixing this world and the things that are broken. If there's one thing in your life, that one thing that breaks your heart, what would that be? And I've been asking you to think about that and try and figure out what that is for you. So I just wanted to start on by telling you the thing that breaks my heart. Years ago, before I had children, me and Marnell, we were freshly married, and we got to the end of our first year of marriage, and the first year was incredible. It was like just you don't know really what you're doing, and at the time it just felt like, wow, well, everything's happening, it's all great. And then at the end of the year, something happened that sort of changed my perspective. So the end of our first year of marriage, I would have to say I was probably a little bit, I would say like Pharisaical. Like if you don't know, in the Bible there's this group of people who are called the Pharisees, and the one thing Jesus kept going up against these people was basically around their pride and the fact that they went, I know what's right and this is how God is, and they were talking literally to the Son of God, and Jesus is trying to say, God's actually like this, and these people are like, no, he's not. And they were constantly rubbing and butting heads. And I think for me, in that first year of marriage, I'd come from a point of thinking, I thought I was always right, and I had this thinking that I had it all together. Prior to getting married, I did a year internship at my church. Then I transitioned to working at another church here in Perth, and I was a kids pastor, and we had about 40, 50 kids on a Sunday, and I was like, this is amazing, like everything's going so well. And then I get married, and life just seems to be going so well, and there was sort of a bit of a self-righteousness in my heart where I thought, I'm good, everyone else is broken, and I can help fix them because they're broken. And then the end of our first year of marriage, of Marnell and I, we had something happen in our lives which changed that. And I had to start to reevaluate, who am I? Is pastoring what I want to do? How do we embrace the mess that's happened in our world? And it started to take me on a journey over the next few years of trying to figure out, what is my heart actually on about? And I went through periods of going, I'm the only one who's right and everyone else is wrong. I went through periods of going, I'm the only one who's wrong and everyone else seems to be right. And it was a constant battle of trying to figure out, yes, I have sin and brokenness in my life. And I think going through this life experience, I think before that, it was a little bit like, yeah, I'm broken and I have sin in my life, but I can manage it. And it was almost like my faith was basically a sin management system. If you've ever been in that before, it's basically I have Jesus and he forgives me of any wrong that I do, and you basically use Jesus as a sin management tool. Whenever you mess up, you go back, oh, I'm so sorry, God. Then you go out again, you mess up again, you go back to God, I'm so sorry, God. And it's almost like Jesus just becomes a sin washer awayer. And you start to go, that's just his role. And I confined him for many years as this sort of thing I would go to whenever I felt bad, basically. And I thought when I had it together, I was doing what God wanted me to do. And when I was broken, I'd just go back, I'd say, so sorry, and I'd go back out about it. I didn't really let the true message of Jesus actually impact my life, which was about how do I shape myself in the way of love. So God began to break my self-righteousness. And when I'm at my worst, obviously it's still there. But he started to show me that decisions and how we live shape people. The brokenness I was experiencing was because of decisions I was making, and I realized that decisions impact people in such deep ways. So over the last 12 years, I've learned this about what breaks my heart. This is sort of where I've landed and what drives me in this space. The thing that breaks my heart is when people make decisions that sabotage their preferred future. That's the one thing that bothers me. And I want to say especially when it comes to children. So when people make decisions that sabotage their preferred future, and especially when it comes to kids and raising children, that breaks my heart. When I see someone say, I desire to be happily married, I want to be parenting with my spouse, I want to be surrounded by supportive friends, I want to be financially stable. People have this preferred image of what their lives look like. When they say that's where they want to be, and then I look at them and I see them spending no time with their spouse, or choosing work or friends over their parenting responsibilities, or they make decisions to hang out with people that don't have their best interests at heart, or when I see them spending money on things that don't lead them to be where they want to be, it bothers me, especially when it comes to families. And all I can think when I see people who have these certain desires of where they want to be, and I look at how they're living, all I can think in my head is, you need Jesus. Like, I see what you're trying to do. I see how you're trying to live. And I just believe if you were to have Jesus in your life, he would reshape where you're trying to go, and he will give you a way to get where you need to be. I think that when people follow Jesus, it makes their life better. They make better decisions. They are healthier for the people who are around them. One of the things that makes me sad is when I'm in situations, you've probably been in situations like this as well. Because I've got young kids, I get to be around areas where there's lots of young parks. You go to playgrounds and you overhear the banter and everything. And one of the things that always sort of upsets me is whenever I hear someone talking to a child in a really an unkind way. The other night I was doing one of my walks. I was walking out there and I saw this family in front of me. And you got to understand, it's dark. So I'm like walking at 9 p.m. at night. And I'm aware that if people see me, and because I'm walking fast, because I'm doing it for exercise, I'm aware that that would be quite scary. If you're in the dark and you see a 6-foot figure with a big beard, I get it, and I understand. And many nights when I'm out walking, couples, not just like single people, couples will look at me, and because I look like I'm on a mission, they're like, try to get away from me. Anyway, so I saw this family, and I saw this, I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, Lord. I can deviate just before I hit them. Anyway, as I'm walking past them, there's a main road there, and they're getting towards the main road, and I smile, I go, hey, how you going? And as I'm walking on, the dad just starts going off at the kids because they weren't listening. Now, they were near a road, and I get that. The only time I really yell at my kids is with road safety. Like, I'm peaceful, but they know if there's a road nearby and they do something they're not meant to, I will yell. That's the one, yeah, I'm trying to explain to them, there's some things you can make mistakes on and some places you cannot make mistakes on. Anyway, so they're near the road and I get that. But as I was walking on and I could hear, I had my AirPod in and I was listening to something and I could just hear out of the corner of his eyes, out of the corner of my ear, the dad said to the kids, stop that, you little beep beep. And I was just walking on just thinking, That's not the way to set a child up for success. So I prayed and I just said, God, I can't do anything right now. No one at 9 p.m. at night wants to have me walk up and be like, do you need help? Like, that's the last thing they need right now. So I just prayed for them. I prayed for the kids that they would be able to be in that space and listen. And I prayed for the parents that they would just take a beat and just think through how they are going to make decisions in that space. So that sort of stuff just annoys me, grinds my gears. And this has been from since before I've had kids as well. When I was a kids pastor, I learned very, very quickly the biggest engine of the church is kidsmen. The biggest engine of the church is kidsmen. The future generation of the church, it matters so much. And I saw in my years as a kids pastor the impact that good kids ministry, good children's environment have on setting the next generation up for success. I saw older people who had baggage from their younger selves because they didn't learn how to deal with certain things. And I saw an emerging generation dealing with who God is and what he means to them. But when people make decisions that sabotage their preferred future, I'm just like, that's not what God wants for them. And I'm sure you're sitting there going, yeah, Josh, like I care about that too. Like, and when I told that story about the kids, yeah, we all want to speak up and say things. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. For me, I just made sure that my career was in a space where I could help people. I make sure I'm in groups where I can receive help and give help in this space. For me personally, as a family, we choose to fund initiatives that help set children up for success. We have 3 sponsor kids through Compassion. We sponsor Destiny Rescue every month to make sure that people around the world, children around the world, have an opportunity to grow up in a space where they can be a part of good, healthy community. And as I said, I've prioritized the importance of family ministry for the last 15 years. Even before I had kids, for me, it was always extremely important. Now, do I get it right all the time? No. No one gets it right all the time. But for me, I'm continuing to try and grow in this space. I believe that for me, if I keep focused in this area of what breaks my heart, of helping see people that they can make decisions that lead to a better life for them, for their family, and for their community, then it's something bigger than myself that I get to focus on. So that at the end of my life, I have something more than just myself to show for it. So this morning, what is it for you that breaks your heart? 2,000 years ago, there was a guy called Luke. He was a doctor. He was a bit of a nerd in the best sense. He was a researcher. And Luke didn't see Jesus with his own eyes, but he was told, hey, I need you to compile a document of Jesus' life. And Luke got busy. He went around. He started chatting to people who had seen Jesus, been with Jesus, and he saw the impact of the early church. So much so, he didn't just write one document. He decided to put in the hard work, and he wrote us the book of Luke, or the Gospel of Luke, and he also wrote about the early church, and he wrote about the book of Acts. So 2,000 years ago, Luke studied all about the life of Jesus, about Jesus' 33 years on earth, and he put it into a document for us to look at. And if you want to chuck up the first slide there, Liam. This is a moment in Luke chapter 12 where Jesus gets to the heart of the one thing that will derail you from actually going and accomplishing the thing that breaks your heart. If you got your Bible, you can go to Luke chapter 12. Otherwise, it'll be up there on the screen. So this is an interaction that Jesus has with some people in the crowd. Someone in the crowd, remember I talked about this last week, we talked about this a lot. Jesus had crowds around him. I mean, free healthcare, free food, free education. Go Jesus. So people were around him. And this guy decides to call out. He says, teacher. So he appeals to Jesus's authority. Like, teacher, the one who's in charge. Hey, can you tell my brother he needs to divide the inheritance with me? And Jesus replies and he says, man, person, sir, who appointed me as the judge here? Like, who made me the arbiter between your little dispute here going on? So Jesus is trying to live his life, do his thing. Someone says, hey, Jesus, my brother's not sharing his things with me, basically. You know, if you got... Anyway, then Jesus says, well, why are you coming to me about this? This is not my issue to deal with. I think the guy came to Jesus. He figured he has authority. He's listened to. If Jesus says that, he can go back to his brother. Was his brother standing there? I don't know. It would have been an awkward thing, right? Like, hey, Sam, come here, stand here. All right, Jesus, maybe he was right there and whatever, or maybe he was trying to get some advice and he'll go back to his brother. I don't know. But Jesus says, not my issue. This is the thing. And then Jesus goes on and he says this, and At first, there's a bit of confusion as to how these two thoughts linked, but they are. So the man calls out, Jesus, my brother's not sharing. So Jesus says to the group around them, he says, everyone, you need to watch out. To which they're like, okay, is this to do with the guy that just asked the question? But he says this, watch out, be on your guard about all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in abundance of possessions. So the guy's sitting there and he's like, that's not helpful at all. Like, come on, basically the guy wanted Jesus to side with him. Like, of course the brother should share the inheritance. And Jesus says, watch out for greed. And the crowd are like, okay, but what's that have to do with his question? He's asking about inheritance. He's asking about things that get passed on. Why are you trying to tell us that we need to watch out for possessions? Jesus is saying life consists not of the stuff that you acquire, so you need to watch out for greed. So he goes and he tells them a parable. If you're not sure what a parable is, it's a made-up story to prove a point, and Jesus wants to make a certain point here. So he tells them this story. He says, hey, the ground of a certain rich man, so he had property, he had fields that were going to yield some good stuff. The ground of a certain rich man, it yielded an abundant harvest, more than he was expecting. He had surplus that he wasn't prepared for. And he thought to himself, what am I going to do? I have no place to store my crops. To which we're thinking, what a great problem to have. Like, I'm sure if you ever prayed that prayer, like, I want rich people problems, like, Lord, give me an abundance. I need to know what it's like to have more than I currently need. Anyway, so the guy's there and he's like, it's grown. And there's so much here. What am I going to do with it? So the man had an idea. He's like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tear down my barns and I'm going to build bigger ones. And there I'm going to store my surplus grain. And I'm going to say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. You can take it easy, drink, eat, and be merry. To which we're going, like, that's the lotto life, isn't it? Like, one Powerball and I'm out of here. You can get there, get to the point in your life where you can eat, drink, and be merry and not have to worry about tomorrow. We all go, that sounds amazing. And he thought to himself, this is going to be great. Just tear down those old barns. They're not big enough. I need bigger ones. To which, like, the advertising industry of Australia and the West right now are like, absolutely, what you currently got is not good enough. You need bigger. You need better. And so he thinks to himself, that's what's going to happen. And we think to ourselves, there's a bit of logic here, right? He has worked hard, maybe. Like, he owned the land worked hard. But anyway, all this extra stuff's come along. Yeah, why wouldn't you build bigger places to store it? But those who are listening to this story, who don't have the opportunity to go to Coles and Woolworths at 8:30 p.m. at night, are thinking to themselves, this guy has extra. And he has barns already. And he's going to hoard all of that stuff? Like, surely he could spare some for us. And then there's a bit of a plot twist. So the man's happy. This is my plan. This is what's going to happen. Then God said to him, you fool, which hearing that you're a fool would impact any of us. Like, I'm not foolish. But to hear it from God, God said, you're a fool. And the guy's like, oh, okay. This very night your life will be demanded from you. And who's going to get everything that you've prepared for yourself? And Jesus closes out the parable and he says this. This is how it's going to be for whoever stores up for themselves but is not rich towards God. The man was just being careful. He was just trying to keep things in order. But Jesus points out, anything you accumulate, you die, is not going to be yours after that. His point is that someone else's, and we actually have a choice in this. Choice number one, we can store up for ourselves and die having abundance. Or choice number two is that we can use what we have so that others can benefit, because at the end of the day, it's going to go to someone else anyway. And the implied benefit of using it for other people while we have it is that is how we get to be rich towards God. Some people have used this verse like, don't store up earthly possessions, be rich towards God. And then someone with a microphone stood on a stage in a church and said, give 10% or more of your income. I don't think that's what the point of this is. What I think is happening here is Jesus is saying you can accumulate, you can generate, and you can have a stock take of all of your wealth, but when you die, it won't be yours. And when you die, you'll have nothing to show for it. But if you use what you have while you have it, and you be rich towards other people, you're actually being rich towards God. Rich towards God means that our heartbeat is in step with what God's heartbeat is about. And when Jesus was generous on behalf of God, he was generous towards people. And as people who now follow Jesus, we have an opportunity to use our resources while on earth to be generous towards people. Being rich towards God is committing ourselves to something bigger than ourselves so that other people can be better off. So that other people can be better off. One day, and if Ruth will be open for counselling after the service. I don't want to make this statement and then you go, what? So let me just, Ruth's available, we'll talk afterwards. One day you're going to die. All right, you already knew. Okay. One day you're going to die. I'm going to die. We're all going to die. And for those of us that have done something with the wealth that we have on earth to benefit other people, one day we're going to die. We're going to be welcomed into God's presence. And the people who are left behind are going to gather for our funeral. And they're going to share stories about our lives and about how we were generous with what we had. They're going to share stories about how we were generous with the resources we had in our hands, with our skills and our ability to help those around us. And then there's an added bonus, which is pretty cool. One day when you die and you go up to heaven, you're going to be there. I don't know how this works, so just imagine with me, because there's no rule book as to how it's going to operate. But you're going to be up there enjoying the presence of God, hanging out, I don't know, reading books, playing cricket. Everyone loves cricket. Yep, cool. Maybe that's just my version of heaven. And suddenly someone's going to walk up. And you're going to be there, and someone's going to walk up to you, and they're going to see you, and they're going to go, thank you. And you're going to look at them and say, for what? And they're going to come up to you, and they're going to say, I don't know if you knew this. But when we were on earth, and we sat down for that conversation actually led me to make a decision that has impacted the rest of my life. I don't know if you knew this, but while you were on earth, did you know that you funded something that I got to be a part of? And because of your generosity, that kept going. And because I was there in that place, God came a part of my life. I don't know if you know this, but did you know that because you invested time with your family and friends, they were able to reach out to me where I was. And because of that, they formed a friendship with me. And because of your decision to be generous with your time, I had a community that I could be a part of. And one day when you're in heaven enjoying yourself, you're going to start to see people coming in. And I hope that they're able to come up to you and say, thank you. Because you committed your life to something that was bigger than yourself, that impacted me. Because you committed your life to something that broke your heart, that impacted my life. And I was able to go and impact other lives. And after a while, people will start coming to heaven. They're going to say, you don't know me. But because you gave your time, your money, your energy, your effort, you gave your presence in that space, you don't know me. But because you did that, I benefited along the way. Someone in that space reached out to me. And there's going to be a beautiful reaction in heaven where people are saying, thank you. You didn't tear down your barns to try and make more for you. You took what extra you had and you gave it away. You were on the guard for greed. You made sure that you did not allow greed to take a hold of your life. Not just financially, but with your time, your energy, your effort. You asked, you answered, and you acted on the question, what breaks my heart? And when we do that, we guard against greed. We become a means to an end that isn't just about us. We have more to show for our life than just our life. So I want to ask you, what breaks your heart? What are people going to remember about what you gave your life to? How are you going to follow the way of Jesus and not just become, my life is an accumulation game, everything is for me, but how do you become, everything I have is for a purpose? Such a great line. Break my heart for what breaks yours. So the question is, what breaks your heart? I think you'll find that it aligns to God's. So as we finish off, my question is, will you join us? If you have a heart for seeing the next generation follow Jesus, if that's the thing that breaks your heart, Jam's looking for 4 new team members to join the cause of inspiring the future church. We're not looking for people who are like, I just want to be on a roster. We want people who genuinely go, I care enough about the next generation, I want to set them up for a win. So we're looking for 4 people in that space. If seeing people in our community come to know Jesus breaks your heart, then Alpha needs you to come and serve, attend. It's coming up in term 2. If helping families breaks your heart, there's a great network of chaplains called Youth Care. They have chaplains in 12 schools within our city. They're always looking for people to help. And we get to help by giving food and meeting up with some of them. And it's a great place to be a part of. If international work breaks your heart, as a church, we partner with Destiny Rescue, which helps children in sexual slavery. We partner with Baptist World Aid, which is all about international community aid and development. Baptist Mission Australia, taking the news of Jesus to new places. And Compassion Australia, sponsoring children in poverty. When you find out the thing that breaks your heart and you join in participating in being the solution, you'll have more to show for your life than just your life. And you will get to live life in all of its fullness. Let me pray for you. God, thank you so much that we have the opportunity to look at the life of Jesus and have it impact us here and now. Thank you that there are so many great in our community, in other churches and around our world. There's so many ways that we can join in being part of the solution to something that breaks our heart. And we know that if it breaks our heart and it hurts people, it hurts your heart and it breaks your heart as well, God. So help us have ways to ask the question, answer the question, and give us the boldness to act on it. Don't let greed distract us. Don't let our own world implode around us. Help us give our lives away so that we may find what is truly life. In your name and for your glory. Amen.